People of Reddit, what stupid rule at your work/school backfired beautifully?
Every shift, there's a quota we need to fulfill. And then, even if you do fulfill it, you have to keep working until your 8 hours are up. Cue everyone speeding for 4 hours, having a 3-hour lunch/coffee break, then slowly moving their ass for an hour. No rule about us taking necessary breaks if we're still capable of reaching the quota. Now we're allowed to stop once we're done.
A place I used to work had a rule that executive-level staff needed to be contactable when on leave, so they had a section on the leave form for the address of where you'd be staying and a contact number. Some knuckle shuffler in HR decided it applied to all staff and the shenanigans began. People would put down the address and phone number of sex shops, sports grounds, medical clinics. I gave the latitude and longitude of the place I was going camping and the UHF frequency my radio would be tuned to.
Required every employee to use electronic time clocks to punch in/out for work including lunch. Punching in late or leaving early would cause your pay to be docked and getting a discipline letter. Multiple people wanted to sabotage the clocks, cut the cords, etc., but wiser heads prevailed. Everyone arrived several minutes early and left late, every single day, to avoid getting into trouble. Unfortunately, this created unimpeachable evidence of hours worked. The employer had to pay out thousands of dollars in overtime the first month.
The clocks disappeared exactly 5 weeks after they were installed with no notification.
Back in 2014 our HR made a rule people couldn't go to other buildings. We had 3 buildings within a block of each other. All 3 had shipping areas and the warehouse employees had to go to each building to work. We were told to stay at one building. I mentioned we ship out of all 3 who is going to do the work. The genius said oh it'll be taken care of. Next day $500,000 shipment didn't go out. The following day we have a meeting. Why didn't you ship this? 2 days ago we were told to stay in our building and someone would take care of it. The rule was quickly changed.
I went to a strict Catholic school with uniforms. The kids in 4th, 8th grade had to wear belts until we got a new principal who made it mandatory for all the kids in the school to wear belts. Many bathroom accidents from kindergartners, 1st and 2nd graders later, and complaints from parents. Of course, the principal rescinded her addition to the dress code. More recently, this principal was fired for embezzling money from the school.
I am the one who lives closest to work. So if the building alarm goes off overnight, I'm first on the list to get the call from the alarm company. It used to be that if we had good reason to believe the alarm was not an actual break-in we could tell them not to summon the police and ignore the alarm. I can access the building cameras from home. The most common alarm was the cleaning crew who were always messing up the disarming. Then a sister site ignored an alarm that turned out to be an actual break-in. And the facilities director decided that no matter what, if there was an alarm we should have the alarm company summon the police. Then go to the building, get the police all clear, and reset the alarm. This was a pain in the ass but rare enough and I lived literally 2 minutes away. Then we contracted for the alarm company to come in and replace all of our panels and sensors. It was a nightmare process that ultimately ended up taking months. And the whole time there were phantom alarms. Sometimes multiple times a night. Each time I had to go out in the middle of the night. I'd prepare the required report, send it to the facilities director, and request to go back to the old process. Each time he said no. We couldn't afford to miss a potential real break-in. After about 3 weeks of this nonsense, I was due for some time off. I was going out of town. And the protocol for that was for me to ignore calls from the alarm company so they moved to the next person on the list, which happened to be the facilities director.
In the 5 days I was off, I must have ignored at least 4 overnight calls that all would have gone to him next. Then suddenly, nothing. When I got back I was informed that for the duration of the alarm update, we just weren't going to arm the building at all. So much for can't afford to risk a break-in.
When COVID started, our boss demanded that our entire team sit in on group Zoom calls. Even if the topics on the agenda didn't have anything to do with their roles. She felt it would build team unity. Productivity dropped. Negative Google reviews came in. Staff became more stressed. When she demanded answers on the next Zoom call, one of my coworkers bluntly said, "Well, I would reply to this woman's voicemail. But I'm stuck on this Zoom call." Late 80s high school rule was no shorts. Classmate came for an exam with basketball shorts on that were below her knees. Teacher made her go home to change. She came back in a micro mini skirt and wrote her exam. Students used to smoke in the toilets. So headmaster decided to lock all male toilets except one. 5 places in one. Now my school had around 700 students, out of which around 300 were male. Everyone realized that it became impossible to go to the toilet quickly. Result: some guys went in one and pissed, defecated in all trash cans. A lot. No one found them. But all the other toilets opened up immediately. Not really a rule, but a change in policy. I used to work for a major beer distributor as a delivery driver. They decided to start using less glue in the packaging to save money. We're talking a few cents per package. As a result, breakage during distribution increased drastically, causing them to eat a lot more damaged product. It caused such a large loss in profit that they quickly changed course. Zero tolerance ended shortly after a bully got thrown through a window because, if I'm getting suspended for defending myself, I'm gonna make it worth my while. This one is great. We had a no dating at work rule, then the director started seeing someone and other people had their hidden relationships as well. That rule was nullified when the director announced his engagement, and so about 6 other couples came out. We no longer have that rule. However, people are to let the admin know of relationships now, to make moving between classes more efficient. They had designated up and down stairways. But they didn't take into account that the stairs were located at the ends of the very long corridors, which meant it was impossible to get to your next class on time. Because of this, no one bothered trying to get to class on time and just blamed the stairway rule. Couldn't buy drinks at lunch with cash money. Had to buy some voucher. They were just cheaply made laminated pieces of paper. This was 2001. I was 13 and bored. Scanned the vouchers and printed them out on paper that kinda matched the color of the vouchers. And laminated them myself. They were horrible made and not even the right color on the back side. Also crudely cut out. I made about 100 of them. Passed them out after I tried paying with them for myself and encountered no problems, made some new friends and upped production. Took them about 3 weeks to find out, but by then the fakes ones had intermingled with the real ones and had already been resold to students via the student office. About half of the vouchers sold were fakes. Drinks were cash only from then on. They had no choice to accept the fakes one for a little while longer though, as they had sold and charged for some of them. Control freak boss says, all rescheduling of a lesson with a client should be run through a secretary who will do the room reservation update and keep me updated. Implicit threat. If you let clients reschedule too easily, you are a worthless wimp that I don't want to work with. Old version. Client contacts you directly. You work it out together quickly and inform the secretary of the new date, time so she can change the room reservation. Boom and done. New version. Secretary receives change request from client, but doesn't know your availabilities. Contacts you. Gets your availabilities. Sends them to client when she has time. Because it's frankly a low priority for her. Clients eventually picks a date and sends it back to the secretary, who sends it on to you. You send confirmation or. Calendars often have changed in the meantime due to new circumstances, so back and forth a few times before a new date, time is chosen. Secretary reserves the room for that time date. This chews up so much time that the secretary falls behind with her other work, slowing down the process, which increases the chance of a calendar change obliging another run-through. The new system lasted about 4 days. Then an overloaded secretary went on stress-related medical leave. The workload was shared in equal parts between the other secretaries. So, 3 days later, another secretary went on stress-related sick leave. When the boss tried to reapportion the workload again, he got a immediate face full of "WTF is wrong with you?" And the next to last secretary stormed out in tears to go on stress-related sick leave. The new system died right there and then. As the French say, when you chase away the easy way, it will come galloping back. People who were caught wandering the halls or skipping classes were sent straight home. I worked at a language teaching center where the lessons are pre-planned by the curriculum and on weekdays we often only have 2 to 3 hours of classes sporadically spread out through the afternoon, evening. The management were pretty chill when I started, and people just planned their lessons in bulk, which basically entailed checking your schedule and printing out the required unit, session worksheets, and just showed up 10 minutes before to deliver the lesson. On weekends we'd have full 10-hour workdays. Apart from that we'd have the odd training session or faculty meeting, but otherwise you could basically go home or go do whatever you wanted between lessons. All the provided apartments were within 10 minutes walking distance of the center, so this was pretty ideal. The nice managers left, and the new management were assholes who started scheduling mandatory office hours, where we had to be in the center with absolutely nothing to do. There'd be a 12 o'clock staff meeting and my next lesson would be at 4 to 6 p.m. And then 3.5 bullshit office hours in the middle. When we asked them what we should do, they said, "Think about your teaching methods." Basically bullshit dickwaving. A bunch of the other teachers starting watching movies on the projectors in the spare classrooms. I brought in my switch. Some people would just straight up go nap on the beanbags in the reading nook. The thing was, there was literally no busywork they could generate, and soon it was apparent to everyone, especially prospective new students and parents, how unprofessional and awful it made the center look. The managers embarrassingly just stopped scheduling and enforcing these office hours. Back in 2011, a company I worked for had the bright idea to block all social networks because, you know, employees should work instead of slacking off on Facebook. I could write volumes of books on the toxic culture in that place. But the owner, president, who lived in a different country and visited about once every few months, was universally feared by everyone, and a few days before his arrival the whole building went into panic mode. So a few weeks after the social network ban, His Royal Highness shows up, and 5 minutes later half of IT department is scrambling to his office. Apparently there was an issue with the Wi-Fi. Or at least that's what he figured, since he couldn't log onto Facebook. It was fixed in seconds. A few years and 3 promotions later, I make a joke about it with him. Instead of a laugh, I get a confused look. Turns out he still thinks it was some internet problem, since whoever decided to ban social networks didn't have the balls to tell him about it after the incident. The private school where I used to work hired a second deputy head, whose main function seemed to be creating rules and policies without stopping to consider whether they were really needed. Their pièce de résistance was to give all the students little laminated cards advising them that if they were being harassed, for some reason, this person always pronounced the word as harassed, they were supposed to tell their tormentor, "I've had enough. I want you to stop saying that." The students, all in their mid to late teens, reacted predictably. Most of the cards were soon spotted floating in the river that ran through the village where the school was located. And the phrase, "I've had enough. I want you to stop saying that" was used frequently by students to whichever member of staff asked them to comb their hair, make their bed, settle down and work. I do remember asking one of the school's star rugby players whether the phrase had ever been used the way it had been intended. And his response was, "Yes. But I kicked the guy in the balls while I said it." The bottom floor of my secondary school was a square that had corridor all the way around. After some incident where a kid got knocked over, they implemented a one-way system. Unfortunately, they were very strict on enforcing it. If you accidentally walked past your class, you couldn't just turn around. They seemed very proud of their new rule. Until everyone started showing up late for class because they had to do extra laps of the bottom floor.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.